Well, when I was in Plenty, I didn't actually meet any agents. I met a man called M.R.D. Foote, who had constructed a manual about what an agent should and shouldn't do. So I went very much by the handbook. And then I met a woman before we started shooting who fell madly in love with Billy and was about to walk off with him. She was about 7 times his age, but, you know, she was such an incredible life force. And she broke all the rules. And so that was very liberating for me, playing Charlotte, to know that, you know, obviously war is intensely chaotic, and you have a goal, you have a mission, but you have to live by your wits. And I met Nancy Wake at the premiere the other night.
Yes. She's a remarkable woman.
Remarkable woman. Such an... I mean, they're incredible men and women who lived and survived. And she actually lost a radio, and she had to cycle 200 miles. And she did it in 72 hours or 71 hours in order to get a radio to maintain contact. And another woman... I mean, often women went as couriers in very minor roles, because, of course, you couldn't give a woman too much to do. But then what happened is their operatives were shot or killed or were exposed, and they had to then take on the responsibility of running the cell.
And the price of ferry was Buchenwald or any of those camps that you got
Pretty
sent
much,
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing, too, which is interesting to reflect upon the kind of courage. I mean, there's many kinds of courage, but there's an instantaneous kind where somebody loses their temper, whatever, and in a moment does something incredibly heroic. But their heroism is an extraordinary brand, because it's a daily heroism, isn't it? They live with the fear, the notion, the knowledge that if they fail, they're dead, day in, day out. And
I think when you're in, I mean, in my small, minor way, but when you're placed in an intense environment, when you experience fear, that's when you realise who you are.
I suppose it's interesting to do a film like that, because it poses questions of yourself, doesn't it? I mean, you would automatically say, in real life, could I have done this? What would my reaction have been? And
in the end, I think it's probably quite futile, because I don't know what I would do if a member of my family was in, you know, the World Trade Center and was killed. I don't know how I'd feel about the Middle East. You know, I get very worried about, you know, racism and how we're actually dealing with it, and are we actually asking the right questions of that event. But until it's actually happened to you, or until you're on the front lines, until you realise that the Viet Cong have dug tunnels underneath where you're operating in, you know, Vietnam, I don't know how I would react. So in the end, you just have to suspend that and say, what does the character do? I mean, David Mamet writes so beautifully about, you know, don't worry about all the psychodrama that an actor normally goes through. You simply do the actions, you know, and so that reveals the character.
Do you find being an actress very fulfilling?
Yes, I do. I do. I mean, I sort of was... I had great... I mean, I loved my schooling because I got to do so much, but I didn't really ever have a sense of, you know, a drive and ambition to do a certain thing. I just wanted to do something. You
could have been an economist. I mean, that's...
Well, I could have been, but I failed, so, you know, maybe not.